was a summer morning, and the city was just beginning to wake up when a soft sound started echoing through the streets. It was a gentle melody, a song that seemed to have sprung from the heart of a child. Little Amanita, with her eyes shining a color reminiscent of the morning sky, was there, on a corner of the city, singing notes of a hope that felt almost tangible. Every day, as the sun rose, Amanita took her place on the cobblestone street, where everyday life moved by indifferently. With a shy smile, she positioned her old drum beside her and began to sing. Her voice, though young, carried a depth that touched the soul. She sang for the people passing by, for the wind, for the sky. But, more importantly, she sang for her mother, who was at home, battling an illness that left her weak and frail. Amanita knew her mother needed urgent surgery, an operation that could restore her health and bring back the smiles that once lit up their home. But the family lacked the necessary resources. So, the little singer found in music a way to raise the funds needed for the surgery, even if it meant facing the heat of the day and the chill of the nights. As the afternoon settled and shadows began to dance on the walls of the buildings, Amanita was still there, her voice echoing through the streets. She sang not only to raise money, but to keep the flame of hope alive in her heart. Every note she sang was a silent plea, a call for someone, somewhere to hear and understand the importance of her cause. The pain she felt for her mother transformed into a melody that touched the hearts of those who passed by, a constant reminder that even in the most difficult circumstances there was room for hope and kindness. The street where Amanita sang was a place that, despite its apparent chaos, held a unique beauty. The weathered cobblestone sidewalks formed an uneven mosaic that reflected the warm colors of the afternoon sun. The building facades, a mix of old and vibrant tones, told the story of a city that had witnessed many eras. The cafes and small shops with their display windows full of goods were open, but the usual buzz seemed to quiet down when Amanita's song began. The sound of her voice permeated the environment almost magically, turning the street from an ordinary scene into a stage of reflection and emotion. People passing by, initially distracted by their own concerns, began to slow down upon hearing the melody. Busy workers, customers of a local cafe, and even children at play were momentarily captivated by the purity of the song. Their expressions softened, their steps slowed, as they let Amanita's music envelop them. Some stopped to listen more closely, their daily worries momentarily eased by the serenity of the notes filling the air. Others, seeing the little artist with her drum, would make a quick pause and drop a coin into the box beside her, not just out of charity, but from a genuine desire to support and help her solitary and courageous effort. The sparkle in Amanita's eyes reflected the daylight, and the smile on her face, though tired, seemed to radiate a quiet strength. Her presence on the street was not just an attempt to raise money, but a testament to the power of hope and persistence. Every song, every note that came from her throat seemed to intertwine with the very essence of the street, turning it into a place where strangers connected through beauty and solidarity. Amanita's days began long before the sun woke up, and her routine was marked by a silent resilience. She woke with the dim morning light, still wrapped in darkness, and prepared for another day. The house, a small structure of worn bricks, had an air of desolation that contrasted with its occupants' determination. The smell of medicine and the faint sound of her mother's sighs were constant. Amanita arranged her drum and small stool with almost ritualistic precision, her small, rough hands revealing the ongoing struggle she faced. Her mother, lying in bed, battled pain and weakness, and every time Amanita looked at her, her heart was filled with a fierce desire to ease her suffering. On the street, the heat of the day was not just a minor inconvenience but a constant test of endurance. The hours passed slowly as Amanita sat under the relentless sun, her voice straining to be heard above the city's noise. Sweat dripped from her face, mingling with the tears that occasionally appeared when the melody became almost unbearable to sing. Even with the pain in her feet and the exhaustion weighing down her small shoulders, Amanita never let the quality of her song falter. Each note was imbued with the weight of responsibility and sacrifice. The eyes that once sparkled with youthful purity were now marked by worry and fatigue. With each coin that fell into her container, there was a fleeting relief, a glimpse of hope that her struggle was making a difference. But the need was great, and the donations often barely covered a fraction of the cost of the surgery her mother needed. The amount she collected barely covered a small portion of the expenses, and the path seemed endless. At the end of each day, Amanita returned home with the weight of an unfinished effort still on her shoulders. The nights were a time of heavy silence, where discouragement threatened to take over, but the determination in her eyes remained steadfast. She knew that each day was a battle, and every sacrifice made was one step closer to giving her mother a chance at a new life. Amanita's sacrifice was not just in the physical and emotional difficulty of singing every day. It was in the certainty that despite all her effort, she still needed to fight a little more, to sing one more song, to achieve her dream of seeing her mother recovered. In a distant corner of the street, a man in an impeccably tailored suit with a refined appearance began to emerge from the crowd. His penetrating gaze, behind dark sunglasses, observed the scene with meticulous attention, as if searching for something specific. His eyes, an unusual golden hue, seemed to reflect an inner light unrelated to the sun's glare. He stood out not only for his distinct appearance, but also for the way he moved with a contemplative calm. Instead of hurrying, he allowed himself to be absorbed by the surroundings, as if he were immersed in a world of his own, detached from the chaos and movement around him. The man passed slowly by where Amanita sang every day, stopping for a few moments and then continuing on his way, always with the same thoughtful expression. There was something enigmatic about his behavior, a mystery that caught the attention of some, but no one knew exactly what he was looking for or why he was there. Each time Amanita began to sing, he moved a little closer, hidden among the passers-by. His presence was almost imperceptible, a silent observer who seemed to absorb every note, every chord with an almost reverent intensity. His eyes, like golden orbs, watched the girl with a depth suggesting that he saw more than just a child singing to raise money. On a particularly hot day, as the sun scorched the street with its relentless heat, the man stopped near Amanita, almost directly in front of the stool where she sat. He watched every movement she made, every breath, every expression of pain and determination. His gaze was fixed on Amanita, as if trying to decipher the mystery of her strength and her silent sacrifice. He made no move to approach or interact directly with the girl. His silence and mysterious presence were enough to capture the attention of those around, creating an aura of curiosity and suspense. Amanita, for her part, seemed unaware of the constant observation. She continued to sing with the same intensity, her voice echoing through the street, while the man with the golden eyes watched from afar, as if each note were weaving a story he couldn't help but follow. The man knew he was witnessing something special. Amanita's struggle was not just a personal battle, but a vivid representation of hope and determination in an indifferent world. And though he didn't show it, from that moment on, his observation would become more than a fleeting interest. He would become part of the drama, a silent spectator, waiting for the right moment to reveal his role in the story unfolding before his eyes. The sun was starting to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Amanita, exhausted after a long day of singing under the relentless heat, was about to end her day. The last light of the day bathed the street in a golden hue that seemed to reflect the hope she carried with her. The man with the golden eyes was there once again, observing from his usual spot, but today something was different. There was an intensity in his gaze, a palpable expectation that seemed to press on the air around him. As Amanita began to pack up her things, her gaze met his for the first time. Her tired yet bright eyes connected with the penetrating gaze of the man. He approached with a barely noticeable grace, each step calculated, each movement deliberate. "Good afternoon," he said in a deep, soothing voice. His presence was commanding but not threatening. Amanita looked up, somewhat surprised, and saw the man standing before her, his gaze filled with respectful curiosity. "Good afternoon," Amanita responded timidly, her voice heavy with fatigue. She looked down, trying to compose herself, and the man noticed the fragility in her stance. "May I ask what brings you here every day?" the man asked, his tone gentle, yet there was an intensity in his words that seemed to disarm the little singer's defenses. Amanita hesitated, her eyes filling with tears she struggled to hold back. I sing here to make money, she began, her voice trembling. My mother is sick. She needs surgery, but we don't have the money to pay for it. The man listened intently, his golden eyes reflecting a glimmer of empathy. Amanita continued, her voice vibrating with emotion. I do this every day, hoping to raise enough to help my mother. She means everything to me. There was a heavy pause in the air as the man absorbed the magnitude of Amanita's sacrifice. He looked at the small figure before him, the determination and pain in her eyes. You have been very brave, he said, his voice now softer, almost as if trying to absorb her pain. You are doing something incredible for someone you love. Amanita looked at him, confused and hopeful. Do you want to help me? She asked, a trembling thread of hope in her voice. The man smiled slightly, a smile that seemed to light up the surroundings with a silent understanding. I would like to help more than you can imagine. Let's talk about how we can make that happen. With those words, the man crouched down next to Amanita, and a connection formed between them, a mutual understanding that their lives were about to change in ways they could barely begin to imagine. The unexpected meeting was not only the beginning of a new chapter in Amanita's struggle, but also the start of a deep and meaningful bond between two souls linked by the power of hope and compassion. As twilight enveloped the city in a soft dusk, the golden light of the setting sun seemed to embrace the street where Amanita sat. The man with the golden eyes, now aware of the story unfolding before him, was immersed in silent contemplation. The weight of Amanita's words and the sincerity of her sacrifice resonated deeply within him. After the meeting, he stepped back a little, moving away from the shadows of the street and into a nearby cafe, a refuge of dark wood and cozy sofas. He sat at a table, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light on his face. While sipping his coffee, his thoughts revolved around the young singer and her struggle. He reflected on Amanita's sacrifice, the love and determination she showed, and the suffering she and her mother were enduring. The coffee, normally a source of comfort, seemed insignificant in the face of the enormity of what he was about to do. The man picked up his phone and made a series of discreet calls. His words were brief and clear, but his tone was firm and filled with quiet purpose. He was arranging something beyond mere words of encouragement. With each call, a plan began to take shape, a plan to turn Amanita's pain into relief and her hope into reality. A few minutes later, he stood up and headed to a nearby investment bank. He spoke with the manager, his words precise and decisive. As he discussed transferring a significant amount of funds, the importance of the cause he was supporting seemed clear. The transaction was substantial, enough to cover not only the surgery but also to provide a more secure future for Amanita and her mother. With his heart still racing, he left the bank and returned to the street where Amanita was still sitting, now on a break with her eyes fixed on a distant point. The man approached her again, his expression now one of serene determination. I've been thinking, he began, his voice now gentle and full of confidence, about what you told me, and I want to help. Amanita looked up, her eyes blinking with surprise. The man extended an envelope to her, his gesture carrying a quiet solemnity. Inside this envelope, there's enough to cover your mother's surgery, and a bit more to ensure you can recover without worries. Amanita's eyes filled with tears, and she looked at the man with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. You're saying you're going to help? Yes, he replied with a gentle smile. I want you to know that beyond the money, what you've done is inspiring. Your courage touched my heart, and I hope this brings relief and a new beginning for you and your mother. The man stood up to say goodbye, and Amanita, still in shock, held the envelope with trembling hands. The weight of the gesture, the unexpected generosity, was almost overwhelming in its magnitude. As the man walked away, the setting sun seemed to illuminate his figure in a nearly mystical way, as if he were a messenger of hope and kindness. Amanita stood there, the envelope in hand, her heart overflowing with a mix of relief and gratitude. What had seemed like an ordinary day had turned into a milestone of transformation, a moment where the generous heart of a stranger had merged with the struggle of a child, creating a new path to a better future. Night had fallen, and the city was enveloped in a soft silence, broken only by the distant sound of cars and the occasional whisper of the wind. Amanita, still holding the envelope, sat by her mother's bedside, the anxiety palpable in her chest. Her mother lay there, eyes closed in restless sleep, her breathing irregular. With a barely noticeable tremor, Amanita opened the envelope and pulled out its contents, her eyes widening at the sight of the amount of money inside. Each bill seemed to glow with its own light, reflecting a relief Amanita could hardly yet fully comprehend. With trembling hands, she turned to her mother, her mind spinning with a mix of emotions. Amanita leaned closer to the bed, her lips moving in a silent murmur. "Mom," she whispered, her voice filled with deep tenderness. "I think we've found a way." Her mother, still half awake, slowly opened her eyes, confused, and then looked at Amanita with an expression of concern and love. "What happened, dear?" she asked weakly, her voice weakened by illness. Amanita took her mother's hand, tears starting to slide freely down her cheeks. "There was a man today, a man who saw what we were going through. He helped us. We have enough for the surgery." Amanita's words were almost unbelievable, but the sparkle in her eyes and the wonder on her face conveyed a certainty that couldn't be ignored. Her mother blinked, her gaze becoming clearer as understanding began to dawn. Are you saying we can have the surgery?" her mother asked, hope starting to emerge in her weakened voice. Amanita nodded, her lips curling into a smile of relief and joy. "Yes, Mom, we can finally have the surgery. We don't have to worry anymore." Her mother's face lit up with a smile, a weak but genuine smile, and her eyes filled with tears of emotion. "Oh, my dear, you've done so much for me. I don't know how to thank you." Amanita leaned in to hug her mother, enveloping her with a fervent affection that conveyed all her gratitude and love. "You don't need to thank me, Mom. I just did what anyone would do for someone they love." The following minutes were filled with a deep and comforting silence as mother and daughter embraced, the weight of their worries slowly being replaced by renewed hope. The relief Amanita felt was palpable, almost as if a great cloud of pain and uncertainty had lifted, leaving only space for light and peace. The feeling of gratitude and hope filled the room, as a new beginning unfolded before them. Amanita knew that although the struggle wasn't completely over, a new chapter had begun, bringing with it the promise of a brighter future. The dream that once seemed distant was now within reach, and the little singer's journey had become a testament to love, courage, and generosity. The next morning brought radiant light and palpable hope. Amanita was in the hospital waiting room, her mind anxious and her heart racing, but a smile illuminated her face. The day of the surgery had arrived, and although fear was still present, the certainty that the operation was possible brought a profound sense of relief. While her mother was in the operating room, Amanita sat with the empty envelope beside her, now a symbol of a possible miracle. As each hour passed, she got up and took small steps around the waiting room, her hands clutching a rosary she had brought with her, her silent prayers floating in the air. The surgery, which had felt like an eternity, finally came to an end. The surgeon emerged with a tired smile, his eyes reflecting the satisfaction of a job well done. "The surgery was a success," he announced, and those words were like music to Amanita's ears. With her heart racing, Amanita was led to the room where her mother was recovering. Her mother, still a bit groggy from the anesthesia, was lying in bed, but there was a calmness on her face, an expression of relief that seemed to grow with the arrival of her daughter. "How are you feeling?" Amanita asked, her voice almost a whisper, her eyes filled with anxious tenderness. Her mother smiled, her expression now relaxed and grateful. "I feel good, dear. The pain is less than I expected. I'm so happy we managed to do it." The recovery process was gradual, but over the days, her mother's condition visibly improved. The doctors were optimistic about her progress, and each day brought a bit more energy and vitality. Amanita, while caring for her mother, continued to sing her songs to her, her soothing and comforting melodies filling the room with an aura of hope and serenity. The music, once a source of relief and effort, had now become a balm for recovery. Each note seemed to have a healing effect, helping her mother find comfort and encouragement during the difficult days. Visitors who came to see her mother were also touched by the beauty of Amanita's songs. The small hospital room, usually filled with a heavy silence, was now alive with the power of music and solidarity. Words of support and gestures of kindness from friends and strangers began to pour in, reinforcing the network of support that had formed around Amanita and her mother. Each day, her mother's recovery progressed, and the joy of seeing her health improve was evident to all. Amanita's music, a constant during the critical moments, had become a symbol of hope and renewal. The walls of the room seemed to absorb not only the melody but also the positive energy and strength emanating from the love and solidarity that had helped transform a desperate situation into a miracle of healing. And so, the miracle of music was not just about the mother's physical recovery, but also about the power of hope, kindness, and determination that had brought two lives together and restored light and life during a time of darkness. Amanita and her mother's journey had found a new path, and the echo of hopeful songs would continue to resonate in their hearts for many years to come. The first rays of morning sunlight streamed through the window of Amanita and her mother's small apartment, bringing a fresh start to a home now filled with renewed energy. The room was bathed in a soft, warm glow, reflecting the relief and gratitude that filled the space. The smell of fresh coffee and baked bread began to spread, signaling that life was slowly returning to normal. With the successful surgery and recovery underway, the changes in Amanita and her mother's lives were palpable. The mother's restored energy brought vibrancy back to the home. Her laughter, once subdued by pain and discouragement, began to echo through the house, and her presence was felt in a vibrant and strong way. Amanita, with a constant smile, was now more enthusiastic than ever to face each day. Her street singing routine had transformed. Instead of merely raising money, she began performing at community events, in small cafes, and even at local schools, where her music became a source of inspiration and joy for everyone around her. Each performance was more than just a display of talent. It was an expression of gratitude. The melodies that once carried hope and sacrifice had now become celebrations of life and new opportunities. The songs she sang reflected the journey she had been through, and the audience, touched by the sincerity of her music, joined her in a celebration of resilience and gratitude. The community, also transformed by the miracle it had witnessed, began supporting Amanita and her mother in unexpected ways. Friends and neighbors helped with daily care, and the generosity of strangers continued to pour in, not just in the form of money but in acts of support and friendship. The financial troubles had been overcome, but the kindness accompanying their recovery was a constant reminder of the network of solidarity that had sustained them. The home, once marked by pain and suffering, was now filled with music and laughter. Every corner of the house seemed to vibrate with new life, and Amanita continued to sing, not just to express her own gratitude, but to share the wonderful gift of renewed life with everyone around her. At night, as the stars began to shine in the sky and the city quieted down, Amanita sat beside her mother, playing her old drum and singing her favorite songs. Her mother watched with pride and love, and the melodies, now gentle and joyful, filled the space with a sense of peace. Time passed, and the scars of their past struggle became distant memories, but the music remained a powerful symbol of gratitude and a new beginning. Each note Amanita sang was an ode to those who had helped, an expression of joy for a life transformed for the better. Amanita and her mother's journey was a testament to the fact that, even in the toughest situations, hope and generosity can create real and profound changes. The music, once an anchor during their times of need, had now become the vibrant heart of a life enriched by gratitude and the joy of a new chance. The sun shone brightly over the city, and the atmosphere of optimism was almost tangible. The transformation in Amanita and her mother's lives had created a wave of inspiration that spread throughout the community. Their story of struggle, The intervention of the golden-eyed man and their subsequent recovery became a tale that touched many lives. Amanita had become a regular presence at community events, her performances turning into moments of celebration and reflection. Every time she took the stage, her story was shared along with her songs, and her journey of overcoming obstacles served as a source of strength for many. At a special event at the community center, a lively and vibrant space, people gathered to celebrate the impact of kindness and music. The atmosphere was festive, with smiles and applause blending with the live music. Amanita, with her drum and her voice, gave a performance that seemed to transcend space and time, her music touching the depths of the audience's hearts. As she sang, Amanita's gaze swept across the room, absorbing the positive energy and expressions of admiration that reflected the transformation she had inspired. The songs were not just about her own experience, but also about the collective strength of the community and the importance of supporting each other. Each note seemed to carry a message of hope, a reminder that kindness and solidarity can create lasting change. The impact of Amanita and her mother's story extended far beyond the stage. Inspired by their journey, many began to get more actively involved in community initiatives. The story spread beyond the city limits, reaching people in distant places. The figure of the man with golden eyes, though mysterious, became a symbol of generosity and how a single act of kindness can transform lives. Small projects began to emerge, inspired by Amanita's story. Schools started support programs for vulnerable children, and charity events were organized to raise funds for similar causes. Amanita's music was incorporated into awareness campaigns, and her songs became an anthem of hope and perseverance for many. On a particularly special afternoon, Amanita received a thank you letter from a group of children who had been touched by her story. In the letter, they expressed how her courage and determination had inspired each of them to fight for their own dreams and to believe in the power of kindness. Over time, Amanita and her mother's story became a legacy of hope and change. Music, which had been a symbol of struggle and sacrifice, was now a beacon of inspiration and faith in the future. Every time Amanita sang, it was as if she was offering not just a melody, but also a testament that the human spirit, when fueled by love and support, can overcome any obstacle. The lasting impact of the rich man's kindness and Amanita's courage spread like ripples on a calm lake. Every act of kindness, every note of music, every gesture of support contributed to a brighter and more hopeful future. Amanita's story became a constant reminder that even in the darkest situations, there is always room for light and transformation, and that kindness and courage can leave a legacy that lasts forever. What did you think of the actions of the mysterious wealthy man? Would you do the same and help this child? Comment below what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this.